Takut. Ingat. Okey, terima kasih. Hai. We will start in 2 minutes. Is it another 5 minutes? 5 minutes. Announce another 5 minutes. Okay. All right. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We would like to warmly welcome everyone to enter the hall and take your seats. Make yourself comfortable, have a drink. Inshallah, we will begin in 3 minutes, inshallah. I think everyone looks ready, so we shall begin the ceremony now. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. We begin first and foremost by thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the opportunity to gather here today. We ask Allah to make this event smooth and beneficial, and that every word spoken, every exchange made, and every idea shared will increase us in understanding and humility, and ultimately bring us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My name is Shahira, and I am a PhD candidate here at IIUM Institute of Islamic Banking and Finance, and I will be your MC for today. Thank you for coming to the IIiBF CEO Talk Series. For your information, the CEO Talk Series is intended to bridge the gap between academician and Islamic finance practitioners through engaging and thought-provoking conversations. A very special and warm welcome to our Rector yang berbahagia, Professor Emeritus Tan Sri Dato Dzulkifli Abdul Razak, Professor Datin Dr. Rusni Hasan, our Dean, the Dean of IIUM Institute of Islamic Banking and Finance, our respected guest speakers, Encik Wan Ahmad Najib from FWD Takaful Berhad, Encik Rafe Haneef from CIMB Group, Puan Shrifatul Hanizah from Securities Commission Malaysia, IIUM staff and community, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. Alhamdulillah, I am very happy to see quite an encouraging number of participants joining us here in the Senate Hall right now. And for your information, this session is also being live streamed on our Facebook page. So please do share this information around with your friends and colleagues who could not be here physically with us today. Now, to kick off our event, I would like to invite everyone in this hall to rise as we play the national anthem of Malaysia, Negaraku, followed by the IIUM song Leading the Way.
Forever.
Thank you. You may now be seated. To receive the blessings from Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, I would like now to invite Brother Muhammad Qutaiba to recite the dua.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. I'm Muhammad Qutaiba. I'm a master student here in IIBF. I would like to recite some dua by sending blessing and salutation to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So let us start. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد يا حنان يا منان يا ذا الجلال والإكرام اللهم إنا نسألك علما نافعا ورزقا طيبا وعملا متقبلا ربنا اشرح لنا صدورنا ويسر لنا أمورنا واحلل عقدة من ألسنتنا يفقه أقوالنا ربنا يسر ولا تعسر وتمم بالخير وبك نستعين يا فتاح ربنا زدنا علما ربنا زدنا علما ربنا زدنا علما سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم.
Ameen, Ameen, Ya Rabbal Alameen. On this blessed Friday morning, we gather here today to witness a significant event, which is the launch of the IIiBF Performance Report for the year 2022, followed by a panel discussion entitled Leveraging Islamic Finance for Sustainable Development. But before we proceed to the main agenda, I would like to first and foremost invite Professor Datin Dr. Rusni Hasan, the Dean of IIUM Institute of Islamic Banking and Finance, to deliver her welcoming remarks.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Shahira. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Honorable Professor Emeritus Tan Sri Dato Dzulkifli Abdul Razak, Rector of IIUM, Encik Wan Ahmad Najib, Wan Ahmad Lotfi, Chief Distribution Officer, FWD Takaful, Encik Muhammad Rafe Haneef, CEO Group Transaction Banking, CIMB Group, Puan Shrifatul Hanizah, Syed Ali, Executive Director, Islamic Capital Market Development, Securities Commission Malaysia, Encik Yusri Yusof, CEO IIIBF, Encik Makhtar Abdullah, CEO of Asas, Dr. Ahmad Basri Ibrahim, Head of Sharia Management, PNB, Dr. Razli Ramli, Echang Fellow of IIiBF, Encik Khairil Anwar Muhammad Noor, Professor Dr. Aznan, Hasan, and all distinguished panelists, as well as the participants and of our today's session. My warm welcome to everyone for our second IIiBF CEO Talk Series in the year 2023. We started our CEO Talk Series in the first quarter with Mr. Daud Vakri. So this is session number 2 for us, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, for today's event, we bring together our esteemed scholars, industry practitioners to discuss the topic that is very important and prevalent to all of us. Talking about sustainable development, particularly in the context of Islamic finance. This topic is our frequent narrative that we are having in IIUM generally. And this time around, we are bringing together the Islamic finance industry for us to talk and having a discussion and conversation on how then Islamic finance or sustainability, Islamic finance as a catalyst for the sustainable and inclusive economic growth and social development. We are happy that our invited speakers, our none other than our Honorable Tan Sri Rector, who have accepted when we propose him to be one of the panel. And of course, other panel, and Cik Wan Najib and Rafe, Puan Sharifah, and of course, our moderator today, Prof. Aznan. Thank you very much, everyone. And we also take the opportunity in conjunction of this event. We are happy to launch our inaugural IIiBF Performance Report. This is our interim report for IIiBF for 2022, covering the Institute's performance and activities, mainly for the year 2022 and a bit of 2023 is the work in progress in terms of the performance. This report serves as a humble reflection of the remarkable achievements made by the Institute stakeholders, highlighting their collective efforts in the areas of education, research, and community engagement. Ladies and gentlemen, the year 2022 marked the 17 years of IIiBF establishment. And to human, 17 years old is the age of adolescent, no longer a child. Adolescence is characterized by significant physical, psychological, and social transitions. Interestingly, adolescents also present new opportunities to positively influence people and community at large. The transition of IIiBF, in analogy of being human adolescent, means that we have grown and developed our capabilities as a premier institute and center of excellence for education, research, publication, and consultancy in Islamic banking and finance, locally as well as internationally. And as the Dean, I am proud of the progress we have made over the past years and the many accomplishments of our faculty, staff, and students. Our institution has continued to prioritize academic excellence and personal growth, even in the face of unprecedented challenges. We have adapted quickly and have provided resources and support necessary to ensure our students have the best possible educational experience. Our faculty members have continued to produce excellent research and to inspire and mentor the next generation of scholars and practitioners in the field of Islamic banking and finance. I'm also pleased to report that our institution has made significant progress towards our strategic goals. We have made progress in strengthening our relationship with our partners in the industry and government, and in enhancing the impact of our research on society. None of this would have been possible without the dedication and hard work of our faculty, staff, members, as well as students. And I want to take this opportunity to express my gratitude to each and every one of you for your commitment to our institution and to our shared mission. Looking ahead, I am confident that IIiBF will continue to thrive and to make meaningful contributions to society. We are committed to continuing to innovate and to adapt to the changing needs of our students and society as a whole. Thank you very much for your continued support to IIUM Institute of Islamic Banking and Finance, and I look forward to sharing more of our progress with you in many years to come. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Thank you very much.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you so much, Professor Datin Dr. Rusni Hasan, for the beautiful opening and for setting the stage for today's event. It is now our pleasure to proceed to the launching ceremony of the IIiBF Performance Report for the year 2022. As mentioned by Professor Dr. Rusni earlier, this report highlights the significant achievements and milestones of the IIUM Institute of Islamic Banking and Finance. With that, I would like to invite our respected Rector, Professor Emeritus Tan Sri Dato Dzulkifli Abdul Razak, accompanied by Professor Datin Dr. Rusni Hasan, to come forward to launch and receive the report. Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much, Tan Sri. Now we ask Tan Sri and Professor Datin to please remain on stage while we invite our speakers and special guests to come forward for a group photo together with the book that has been given to you earlier on the table. Please welcome. Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. To conclude the launching ceremony, we would like to present to you a short video on the IIiBF Performance Report 2022. Alhamdulillah, congratulations once again to IIiBF on the launch. May Allah bless the effort and grant them continuous success. Ameen, ameen, ya Rabbal Alameen. Before we proceed to the much anticipated panel discussion, we would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our sponsor for today's event, which is FWD Takaful Berhad, for their generous support and contribution. To provide further insights into FWD Takaful Berhad's dedication in promoting ethical and Islamic finance, we will now present a short video from our sponsor. Thank you. May Allah grant barakah and reward FWD Takaful Berhad. Now, it is time to embark on a thought-provoking journey through our panel discussion on leveraging Islamic finance for sustainable development. Guiding us through this enlightening conversation will be our very own professor from IIiBF, Professor Dr. Aznan Hasan. Professor Dr. Aznan Hasan will also be leading the Q&A session during or after the talk, so be sure to have your questions ready. Without further ado, I would like to invite Professor Dr. Aznan Hasan to take the stage and begin the conversation.
Assalamualaikum. I hear you right or very old. It's not me, not working. Oh, this one. Dzulkifli Abdul Razak, our rector for IIUM, our very own Dean, Professor Datin Dr. Rusni Hasan. No own, that one own. Our deputy deans, all the panelists, our guests, welcome to IIBF and welcome to our IIUM. I always feel at home when I'm in IIUM. They know that normally I come to IIUM not wearing my tie, not have my jacket. Everything is to me, very natural to be at home. You know, sometimes you feel too at home, you used to use words that maybe only use at home. I hope that I don't do that here now today in front of all the guests. I think this is my first time talking in front of my rector. And somehow I feel very nervous. I'm not sure why. Having been so everywhere in this world, but coming to UIA and talking in front of my rector, I feel very nervous, to be frank. I hope it's not so obvious. Thank you very much for coming here. I mean, let me brief you on this idea for this particular CEO talk series. You know, one time I was invited to Germany in one of university to give a keynote speech on closing the gap between Islam and the West via Islamic finance. So nothing to do with Islamic finance. We talk about Islamic finance and everything, but I realized, and on that particular day was a big message in the university. So I was wondering what it was about. I don't think they come to my program because this is Islamic finance. It's not so well known in Germany. So what happened? What happened that day? The CEO of BMW gave a talk. After I finished my session, I said I want to go there to see to get the feeling on how a CEO of a big company come to university and inspire the student. And it was a big crowd in that particular talk. And he was simply give his point of view on a lot of things, not only about automobile and everything. So come to my mind, I think this particular bridging between the practitioners, the expert outside and the universities are very important, not only for the marketing, for relationship, but also for the building up of our student. So we come back, as I came back, I said, now let us try to put this particular series into IIBF, and that's why we have the first one. This will be the second one, and inshallah you will continuously see this particular CEO series. Now I'm talking to some scholars to have scholars series, inshallah, and the first will be Sheikh Taqi Osmani, inshallah. I've talked to him already, and to get him to come, and it's not easy to get him to come anyway. He come for several reasons. I tried to convince him to come, still convincing. Try to convince him. Perhaps I think this kind of deliberation, discussion between academia, country, and outside world practitioners, experts, that look at different angle of the same issues and the same areas. Academia, with our idealistic view, sometimes we call that. Can we look at Islamic? We look at finance, we look at many things in a very academic point of view. This particular ideal point of view is very important. The practitioner has to listen to the academia from that particular angle. Why? Because we always need to strive for the best. But on the same time, we have to balance, on the other hand, with the situation of time, practice, environment that we have. So having this kind of discussion from academia, from the practitioners, I think will enshrine more in terms of our student understanding, and also bridging more in terms of the understanding between the academia and also the practitioners. I'm not sure which side of the coin I'm here now, from the practitioner's point of view or from the academia point of view. And I try to be in the middle for that matter. Now we come to this particular important topic. And then one thing that I learned also, when you get the mic and you are given the task of moderator, it's not easy sometimes, Tan Sri. You have to be the moderator and you are given this good mic. And I have to play the role of moderator. So I remember one time I was asked to give a talk in one of the governors meeting, some of the GCC's governors meeting on Islamic finance and environment. It was last year, I'm not mistaken. So I asked in that particular, I start by having a small discussion, small question. I asked the governor, what is sustainable development? What is sustainable development? I mean, we are all here giving policy to our country's finance. All the governors of some GCC countries, I mean, somehow they invited me to give a talk. I came from, not from Malaysian market, from UAE market. I'm advisor of the government, of the central bank, so I come from that particular part. I asked the governors, what are sustainable development? So a lot of discussion, a lot of opinions on what is sustainable development. I come to the conclusion, this is my conclusion of sustainable development, which is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. If this you call sustainable development, this has been talked in Quran long time before all this conventional theory of sustainable development comes to the picture. I cite one verse from Quran, verse from Surah An-Nisa, verse 9, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, وَلْيَخْشَ الَّذِي نَلَوْ تَرَكُوا مِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّةً ضِعَافًا خَافُوا عَلَيْهِمْ فَلْيَتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَلْيَقُولُوا قَوْلًا سَدِيدًا. This verse narrated in the context of wasiyah. But if we go further, it talk about two situations, two generations. What Allah saying in this verse? Those people should be fearful. Toward whom, if they leave behind some helpless children, would remain anxious for them. Let them be mindful of God and speak out justice and say what is right. What this verse try to say is that whatever you say, whatever you do now, don't forget about future generation. In the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ to Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas, for example, when Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas was on the bed sickness and he believed that he's going to die, he asked the Prophet for him to give all his charity, all his wealth to charity. The Prophet said no. And he said half. The Prophet said no. And he said, what 1/3? Prophet? The Prophet said 1/3. This hadith we understand from different angle. Our screening methodology rely a lot on this hadith. As-thuluth was thuluth to kathir. But we forget what after that, where the Prophet ﷺ said to Sa'd, for you to live your legal heirs wealthy, it's better for you to leave them poor and begging people. So the concept of sustainable development is not something new. Even though when we started Islamic finance, for one reason or another, we were more toward what we call negative screening. But in actual fact, every time we do Islamic finance, is embedded in Islamic finance the concept of sustainability development. So when we talk about sustainability development now in Islamic finance, it's not about talking something new. We are talking on something which is embedded in our finance itself. That's the thing that we have to understand. Why I raise these particular matters, simply because now people are talking about SDG, UN 17 SDGs and everything. Even the Muslim and the Islamic bankers also, when they talk about that, they talk as if this come out of nowhere. And there's nothing in Islamic finance that has that particular ideas and theory and understanding. While in actual fact, the Prophet ﷺ has been emphasizing for this, and Quran has been saying about this long time ago. So we have to understand this within this particular idea. So coming back to this, our discussion. For today's discussion, I think we are very honored to have with us. I think we have gathered almost every angle of Islamic finance. We have our respected Honorable Tan Sri to talk about the role of education in Islamic finance. Tan Sri make a joke just now, only him without the money today, the rest are all with the money. I make a joke again, I said for them to have money, they need education. Otherwise, they are not what they are now today anyway. So the role of education and educationists, I call it, is very important for this particular. I still remember when my late mother was still alive, you know, it keep bothering me. Should I remain in UIA or should I resign? Because all my engagement and everything. So I asked her one time, I'm thinking of resigning because I'm tired already, and I'm not sure whether I still have place in UIA with my travel, with what I'm doing and everything. My mother said simple thing: what you want in life? I said, I was paused for a while, and I said, I want to go to Jannah. That's what I want. Nothing else mattered in my life. I have achieved what I have achieved. The rest after this is for me to go to Jannah. I said, you think which one can bring you nearer to God? Say, education. Say, listen to your conscience before doing anything. So I'm here. I hope you are still accept me here for all this while. So education play a very important role when it comes to this particular thing. And on my right side, we have our Encik Wan Najib from FWD Takaful. I think he will give perspective on Takaful. And we have Encik Rafe. I'm not sure what to say his designation now. I think I can still say CEO Group of Transaction Banking, CIMB Group, until further announcement, I believe. And on my left also, my boss in Islamic Capital Market of Securities Commission, Puan Shrifatul Hanizah, Said Ali, Executive Director, Islamic Capital Market Development, Securities Commission of Malaysia. We have also several participants here. We have a man with a lot of money, PNB here as well. We have our Sharia Scholar Fraternity CEOs. We have, believe we have a lot of people here that can give a lot of insight into this particular area. And I welcome all of you, especially our panelists, our Honorable Rector, and all the panelists for this particular discussion, inshallah. So the role of discussion today that I'm going to play as a moderator, I'm still behave as a moderator. I'm going to give each and every speaker 5 minutes each, not more, to give their general idea about this topic. I hope they will cover from their particular expertise and understanding. And after that, I will open the floor for discussion. I mean, to start kicking the discussion, I perhaps will throw some of the question, but feel free to throw your idea and your discussion to the discussion. And then I will close the discussion by giving each one of them 2-3 minutes as their closing remark to this particular discussion and ideas. If everybody is ready, I would like to start by giving the floor to our Honorable Rector, Tan Sri, for his thought on this particular topic. Please, Tan Sri.
Thank you very much, Prof. Aznan. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me thank you for having me here. Like I say, I feel like an old man out, no money, does not understand the Islamic finance well. But I've got an interest in this. And then my interest is basically exactly as you have mentioned. What is sustainable development? I've been involved in sustainable development maybe 25 years now, when they started the idea of sustainable development at the United Nations University in Tokyo. We were involved somehow or other. But the idea of sustainable development, I think, is a crucial idea, particularly when you talk about industry. They seem to have a different idea of what sustainable development is all about, if at all they have any idea. Yeah. So you have words like now greenwashing, you have words like green financing. I wonder whether this is sustainable development in its core sense. You quoted the Quran. That's good. But in other words, question is, who defines what? In my life for 40 years in education, it depends on who defines what. And in the Muslim world, often other people define things for us. And we just take that as though, quote unquote, is the gospel truth, or maybe in this case, the Quranic truth. Nobody dares to challenge those definitions. And most of the time, we got into a very wrong sort of a perspective because it is not Quranic at all. Yeah. So going back to your definition, Prof, the present and about not compromising the future. That has been the actual articulation in the report, the Brundtland report of 1987. And that has been used all the world over. Everybody talks about the present and the future, the present and the future. But after 35 years, we ask the question, what about the past? Isn't the past important? Yeah. And we ask this question because our research showed, at least in part of Asia, sustainable development has been there long before this definition were created. A good example is the Subak system in Bali. You know, the Subak system where they do this irrigation and plant thousands and thousands of acres of land. That has been there for almost 900 years. Yeah, the Subak system, based on a principle called the Trikita Karana, which means a relationship between man and the environment, and man and the creator. Now, if we take this assumption that he has been there for 1,000 years, then that should be our definition. And in that definition, there is this word creator. In the Brundtland report, the word creator doesn't even exist. They don't even acknowledge it, right? Now, we went to Bhutan and we studied Bhutan punya constitution. And the Bhutan punya constitution said this, that the government of the day must ensure the happiness of the people. If the people are not happy, then they kata the government has no right to exist. Use that definition, many of our governments have no right to exist long time ago, you know. And that's from there they developed this whole idea of G&H, gross national happiness. They don't care about your GDP. And now they develop it in such a way that everybody talks about what Bhutan has done in terms of G&H. And a whole concept of what happiness is all about. And in Bhutan, everybody must know how to be happy. And because that is part of sustainability to them. I mean, these are just two examples in Asia, at least, that when you talk about sustainable development, there are different understanding of what sustainable development. And to me, it is more in-depth than this whole idea of present and future alone, because the past was not added. And we go to the past, then we go back to the Quranic. I mean, when the Prophet manned his own sandal, you know, manned his own garment, to me, that's already sustainable development. Because our generation now, the moment the garment is torn, they will throw away and buy a new one. The moment the shoes are torn, they don't even bother to mend it, they buy another one. I mean, that is not sustainable development. So in the very principle that I want to bring is that the sustainable development has been part of our life. And that's why in this university, we are trying to build this whole idea of sejahtera. Is our own notion of what sustainable development is not pembangunan lestari. You go down to the kampung and ask makcik, hari ini pembangunan lestari macam mana makcik? The makcik will stare at you and say, go away. I don't understand what you're saying. You know? Or use the word mampan now as part of Madani. I'll talk a little bit about Madani. M is mampan. Ask them about mampan. Hari ini makcik mampan ke? Mampus saja katanya. Saya tak understand mampat. Yeah. But if we talk about sejahtera, makcik sejahtera ke hari ini? Then at least we have got some response. So in other words, we need to go back to our culture, our values, our worldview to understand this word. Pembangunan lestari is just a translation of sustainable development that has no meaning to us. And yet we in university teach our students about pembangunan lestari. We don't teach them about sejahtera, which is the actual word for sustainable development. So the university, I think, has got a very crucial role to play when we want to adopt and adapt terminologies. One of the terminology that has been worrying me for a long time is this word human capital modal insan. It wasn't there in the education system until Pak La came in and brought in this word modal insan under Revolusi Pendidikan, year 2007, I still remember. And I was trying to understand what is this modal insan about. And finally, it becomes a neoliberal theory of human capital. It's already started with neoliberalism, yeah. And therefore, sometimes I went to Indonesia, I saw this book, Modal Insan Syariah. The Sharia and Modal Insan comes together. These are our fundamental role in the university to clarify what is the meaning of these words, how do we define it, and how do you put in the context so that we are not marginalized. At the end of the day, if we don't use our own context, then it is marginalized because sustainable development is contextualized. So then the European will tell you what sustainable development and give their definition, you know. And when you look at Europe, their footprint, they live on the resources of 3 planets. Can you emulate the model of Europe when you have half a planet? Developing countries, half a planet, you are lucky, you know. Sometimes a quarter of a planet. They have taken the other 2 planets to themselves and they say, this is sustainable development. Now follow what I do. Yeah. American have resources of 5 planets. Between the American and European alone, they've got access of 7 planets among themselves. And they are trying to define sustainable development for us. And we are not able to do this because they need to return those 4 planets back to us. Then only it becomes meaningful. So it is not a simple thing as you know, as understanding what sustainable development, the way it is worded in that textbook. There's a lot of things that we need to do from the Islamic world if you think Islam is also sustainable development. And my example here, when I came here in 2018 and I talked about sustainable development to the university trying to introduce, I think most people will say Islam, sustainable development is not Islamic. Some will even ask, usulnya di mana? I cannot answer this usul question. You know, but Alhamdulillah, God is great, and I saw this 7 missions that Professor Kamal Allah Yarham created in 1995, and number 2 talks about sustainable development. So when I showed this to them, suddenly that argument drops. I don't know why. Okay, now everybody is talking about sustainable development, but is it in our terms or is it in their terms? And I want to make sure today, as we talk about sustainable development in Islamic finance or even in Islam itself, let's talk it in our terms. Let's redefine it if we need to redefine it. In other words, the past is important bagi saya. The present is certainly important. The future is certainly important. But we are not going to say that this is something new coming from the Eurocentric sort of a definition that we have nothing to say about it. I think that's a statement that I want to make, that there is an element of sustainable development, in fact, much more so, because we also relate to the question of balance. The question was that you talked about, the question of mizan. And that definition do not come in the Western. The Western are still talking about growth, sustainable growth. I say there's no such thing as sustainable development growth because growth are never sustainable. Yeah, logic will tell us anything that grows must come down. Sustainable development. Then they talk about circular economy. Then they talk about blue economy. Then they talk about green economy. I don't know all these colors coming in. Yeah, but what does a Muslim say? Yeah. And this is, I think, where our role is today. And that's why I somehow rather hinted to Rosni, if you have got this, I want to come in. You know, because I think this is the major role that we need to do to reset the definition. After pandemic, we even see this much more. the definition of sustainable as we understand it do not apply. And I'll give you a simple example before I end. The question of vaccines. Everybody agree that pandemic is a humanitarian problem, that all human lives matters, doesn't matter who you are. But once a vaccine comes in, then the whole question of sustainable development does not apply anymore. 85% of the world in the developed world were vaccinated. Less than 10% in the developing world were vaccinated. Is our life cheaper than them? And the case is even worse. When they've got excess of this vaccine in their country, they throw it away. They don't want to donate it to us because they want to ensure that the price remains high. Is that sustainable development? That's not sustainable development. So they say one thing and they act one thing. And in fact, the British Medical Journal talks about this in the context of this is a crime against humanity. Medically, it says what they are doing is a crime against humanity. So I think we need to come really very seriously to this and make our voice heard, put in our definition, clear our path, and let's move this. So the ESG, industry uses very often. I'm sorry. To me, ESG is environment, social, and greed. The G is greed, not governance. I've seen enough examples that they use ESG for themselves. It's almost like CSR in different words, a green CSR perhaps. So we need to understand where they're coming from, and we need to put this into place so that Islam does not lose its position when it talks about sustainable development, really from the Islamic point of view. So I stop there. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Tan Sri. Very good and provocative talk and ideas. I think we share with you a lot of things. I remember one time when I was advisor to Bursa, that time they were talking about CPO against soy. Soya bean. So I was in New York that time for a conference on sustainability and climate change. So they were bashing over us on the CPO. I make a joke. I said, well, you talk about climate change, you talk about preserving the forest after you clean all your forests, you make a lot of money, you feel hot, now you want us to preserve our forests for the sake of you feel cold. That is my definition of what you are telling now today. You're talking about CPOs, how CPOs are detrimental to the environment. Do you know that CPOs, after it's grown high, it becomes a forest by itself? But soy can never be. Have you realized that? Because that time, I was also advisor to Barclays that time. So Barclays doesn't allow for the use of CPO. So I stood up and I said, this is for my country. I know I'm your advisor, but yet I'm from Malaysia, so I have to defend Malaysia for that matter. So this thing, as Tan Sri put, is something that sometimes a good, what we call in Sharia, good term, but used for wrong reasons. Kalimatul haq yuradu bihal batil. Sometimes, I mean, good. Thank you, Tan Sri. Now, students and those who are listening, now you know why you have to come and study in IIUM and IIBF in particular. Thank you very much, Tan Sri. I move further to Encik Najib. Perhaps I give you also 5 minutes to give your insight on this particular topic. Please, Encik Najib. I make not to what we call introduce each and every speaker, because I think we know them already. So it saved me. Everybody give me 1 page of their introduction. It take me 10 minutes to do that. So I cut short. Encik Najib, please.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good morning. Prof Aznan, the moderator, Tan Sri Rector, fellow panelists, Prof Rusni. Actually, first and foremost, I better give a disclaimer that a lot of my thoughts that will be spoken today is a personal thought and does not represent the company that I present, so that I don't get into trouble later. Right, and it's very thought-provoking to speak after 2 very distinguished individuals, Prof Aznan and Tan Sri, giving their light on the topic itself today. I personally, I'm a very simple man. and I don't go into technical terms too much. I believe in content more than form. And I could not disagree with some of the notion that was put forward by Tan Sri and Prof Aznan, particularly about what it actually means. Because as a Takaful practitioner, every time we talk about sustainable and being the smaller brother in the Islamic finance industry, we always get drowned in the topic of climate and risk and whatnot. And that's been, every time we talk about sustainability, that would come into play a lot more than the spirit of what sustainable actually means. Because to me, what it means is actually more of what Tan Sri has mentioned, a lot more of giving back to what we feel people like you and me and the other people around us need or require in life. And a lot of times in Islam itself, it's not something that is alien. It's been taught since we were born, from the start of Islam. And a lot of examples have been cited, and even the concept of zakat, when it talks about wealth distribution, is all about creating sustainable development. When Tan Sri mentioned ESG, G is greed, because we always look at the end of the day, dollars and cents, where in actual fact, whatever we do is about redistributing it so that a lot more can feel. And the spirit of government, when Rasulullah SAW built Madinah before, was built on that, to ensure that each of us comes up from where we are and become better. And that's where the role of Islamic finance and the spirit of each Islamic finance instrument that has been built across the system. And Prof Aznan, I think you're a specialist on Islamic finance instrument across industry, was always meant to do that. Takaful in particular, when you look at it, is all about providing protection for individuals, in the sense of anything happens, then they have that financial safety net in order for them to continue to live and provide a better life. And in order to help one another, you also need financial capabilities and safety net. So that is from the start sustainable in nature, to me particularly. And we had always had this discussion. Even I have fellow representative from Malaysian Takaful Association. Always when we talk about Takaful itself, it's always been in the spirit of sustainable development in that sense, because it's all about helping one another and providing that safety net in case anything happens. It's how we then translate to whether we cover a person, we cover a lower income segment, which we do right now with various initiatives that's done in the industry, whether we start extending our coverage to disabled segment, people who never had any chance to get any coverage before, whether we help farmers protect themselves from any calamities involving their crops during hard times, something that we then translate in the spirit of the origin spirit of Takaful itself, which is sustainable in nature, and then reflect on what Islamic finance role is in sustainable development. And that's why I come back to my point, right? There are 70 SDGs in the SDG goals. Every time people ask me, which one does family Takaful cover, sticks, I will answer, like, to be honest, I couldn't care less. Right? Because at the end of the day, if I tick one SDG, but the person on the street does not get what it needs, then it doesn't mean anything. Right? And because it's again coming back to the purpose, and and all of us know in Islam, every step we take or every action we do all starts with intention. And again, coming back to the questions of what we define sustainable is, like what Tan Sri has mooted to, is something that I think in Islamic finance and Takaful particularly should define on its own. I won't go into details of some initiatives that we do, because each each company and each product that we do might cover that, right? And there are certain things that I also find a bit awkward to shout out when we talk about sustainable development, right? When we talk about climate risk and when regulators ask us, what do you do to ensure that you contribute to environment? Oh, we off our building after a certain time to save electricity, right? To me, that is like, okay, what you're talking about, right? What actual impact does that create? And we redefine formulas to look at carbon emission reduction, but does it really create that impact? Or are we kidding ourselves? Against how many people we have saved, or how many families or children that we have stopped from quitting school through providing financial protection. I would just, before I end, I would just cite one example that I've mentioned before in many occasions or sharing. At FW Takaful, we do this financial literacy program for students or youth. And we go to a lot of schools. I think some of you have heard this story before, but I don't get bored telling this because I like to share what actually means on the ground. And during the COVID period, there was one window that we were allowed to do a camp, and we did a physical camp at one of the low cost apartments, PPRs, which is not far from here. It's PPR Sungai Bonus, just around the corner in Setapak. And we didn't do with students. We engaged the local community. We had one of the head of the community to gather about 21 youth, we call, between the ages of 14 to 19. 60% all Muslims. These 21 youth, 60% of them were school dropouts. This is just around the corner in Setapak. 2 of them were illiterate, couldn't read, couldn't write, age 16. And when we talked and we spoke to them, we inquired to their stories. One of them told me, or my colleague, that she had to quit school because the mother passed away due to cancer. Imagine, like Prof Aznan said, education and all the lecturers and Tan Sri, you should be proud as your path to Jannah is closer by providing education. But imagine taking that away from a child. What does that mean? And as Takaful protectionists, and at that point of time, we were just about to launch our product for low income called Abdul that cost RM2 a month for 10,000 coverage. I felt so bad that I wish I was there earlier to promote that RM2 product to this family. At least with 10,000, maybe she did not have to quit school. And her life could have been different. To me, that is what sustainable means. Again, coming back to what Prof Aznan mentioned, what we do today for the future, and adding on to what Tan Sri mentioned, from this experience at this PPR, learning from the past to help build a better tomorrow. With that, I pass back to Prof Aznan.
Thank you very much, Najib. I think the word takaful itself is a sustainable word. If you learn Arabic, the word takafala means that you are helping one another. By definition, takaful is sustainable. But how many of us, when we talk about takaful, we come from that angle? Many of us talking about coverage, even the agent also, sometimes people ask him, what is takaful? Doesn't matter lah. The point is that you put this money, inshallah, we cover you with this and this and this and this. He himself never emphasized on the very basic understanding and principle of the takaful itself.
Translation of insurance.
That's the point. Macam you kata tadi, Tan Sri, how to give meanings to the word. How to give meaning to the words. Sometimes, other people, they're good at creating bombastic words and names, acronyms and whatsoever. But when it comes to meaning, it's shallow. And Muslim, the problem that we have is that we have a lot of meaning. We fail to put the word. Sorry again? That's the point that we have, all right? I mean, thank you, Najib, for putting that. I think emphasizing what Tan Sri has mentioned about defining the sustainable development meaning within our own context, understanding, meaning, and definition. Apa tadi Tan Sri? Mampan. Mampan pergi kat siapa ni kata mampus kan? They don't understand the meaning. I think that the thing also lah kan. Even for our kids, for example, kan. I remember one time when one of my kids asked question. I tried to put the understanding to him. Give the word and my wife simply said, no, let me explain to him. Your word is too much there. Up there, nobody understand what you're talking to your kid. Let me try simplify to them what you are trying to say. And then after my wife told that, kenapa tak cakap macam tu? You know, the meaning is there, but the word that we put fail to make them understand the word for that matter. Thank you very much, Najib. I think you put our one example that I believe that defining the sustainable development meaning, sometimes we have gone beyond what is needed to work within our own society. I now go to Rafe. Rafe is I can still address him as the group transactional banking at CIMB group, CIO group transactional transaction banking CIMB group. Perhaps he will enlighten us on the sustainability from the banking fraternity, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Prof. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wal akibatu lil muttaqin wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulil Amin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. It gives me great pleasure to be back at my alumni, UIA. Although I didn't study in this campus, but UIA has a very special meaning to me. And this particular topic is particularly important given the huge advancement in the framework for sustainable development and sustainable finance that we are seeing. And as Prof pointed out earlier, what is our contribution from an Islamic perspective in defining the development as well as the financial aspects? So when I went through this journey, I first looked at Islamic sustainable development back in 2010. That was a time where Islamic finance was at the crossroads. There was the emergence of Tawarruk, and there was a lot of criticism on Islamic finance. So we have to reset to look at a new narrative for Islamic finance. And I remember in 2010 or 2011, we had looked at the concept of tayyib. So from halal to tayyib, and what does tayyib means? So when you look at from an Islamic epistemology, what is the source of knowledge for this sustainable development? So I looked at the Quran, and it basically fits well within the concept of Amru Ma'ruf wa Nahy al-Munkar. In many places, the Quran says, those who enjoin good deeds and forbid the bad deeds, those are the people who are muhsinun, or muhsinin. So if you look at the Islamic classification of Islam, Iman, and Ihsan, Islam is the highest, Ihsan is the highest form of being a Muslim. So you first say the Shahada, and then you have the faith, and then you have Ihsan, which is where you beautify the religion. How do we beautify the religion when in the process of becoming a Muslim, we have destroyed the earth? So if you look at the climate impact today, when I just came from Uzbekistan 2 weeks ago, Malaysia is hotter than Uzbekistan when I came back. It feels, it's piercing hot. You know, it feels like you are in Dubai during, you know, the peak of the afternoon, right? In summer. So globally, we are witnessing the increase in this climate. The average global temperature has increased. So it's no longer beautiful. And the Quran says, world has been created as a cradle. No, we use a cradle for baby, for infant. And be gentle, walk gently on this earth. If we applied that, all this Quranic message, and see how we are actually walking on this earth, we are not being a muhsin. We are Muslims, we are doing Islamic banking, but I don't think we are complying with that standard of ihsan, which is what tayyib correlates. So there's a strong correlation between the aspiration to be a muhsin and what muhsin means. The Quran itself says, if you prevent bad deeds and promote good deeds, that is ihsan. And that's what SDGs is all about. So SDGs are codifying, these are the good deeds you have to focus on, which in Islamic terminology would be equivalent to maqasid, right? So whether the maqasid that we have now, which is at least 10 centuries old, should be reflected. Because when Imam al-Ghazali was looking at that maqasid, there was a time where Islam was under real threat. There was a lot of sects, and there was, deviant and very different views on Islam. So the protection of deen was really important. Hifz-ud-Din was really important at that time. But today, the challenges are very different. So if you look at where we are today, if you look at the mafsada that you need to prevent, the first is basically this climate change. We are seeing it today. Adverse weathers, acute, chronic weather conditions. And therefore, we need to look at the data. So we need to look at the data points to support our view. What harm are we trying to prevent? So if you have the data, we can say, okay, as a Muhsin, I need to make sure these are the negative actions that I need to prevent from happening, from continuing. So if you look at the data, before the Industrial Revolution, for almost 10,000 years, the world is defined as a Holocene period. The average temperature was about 12.7 degrees Celsius. That was seen as the Holocene period, which allows flora and fauna and humans to thrive. Not survive, but thrive. So that's when people were having that ability to create civilizations and then advance. But over the last 100 years, the temperature has moved from 12.7 to 13.7. That's still okay. That's why we keep saying within a tolerance of 1 to 1.5 degrees, we can manage. So the perfect weather average surface and sea temperature level is 12.7 degrees. We hit 13.7 degrees 100 years ago. Today is close to 14.7, 14.8 degrees. That means we're already coming to 2 degrees Celsius from the Holocene, from the perfect weather. What has caused it? So the scientists looked back. It is mainly caused by these emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, carbon, methane, nitric oxide, and so on. So they started computing. So 100 years ago, the total GHG emission was about 35 billion tons, CO2e. Today, we are close to 58, 59. So almost it's going to double. So the scientists felt there is a correlation. The higher the GHG emissions, the higher the temperature, then you will see all this adverse climate impact. Now, we could manage 2%, but we don't know if 2% would push the world towards a tipping point that we cannot reverse. So that's why the discussion is on, let's try to keep it within 1.5 degrees Celsius, which currently we are not. If you look at the current trajectory, in 2020, every government agreed, most governments agreed to reduce collectively 3 billion tons of CO2e every year from 2020 to 2030. So you will be able to clear 30 billion tons. But we are not. Actually, they're going up. So there are serious commitments issues. So this is where we look at, as Muslims, if you're going to develop based on sustainable development goals, how do we advance our financing? So if we are giving Islamic compliant financing to a company that is going into plantation, which is good, plantation ensures food security. It is in line with maqasid. It's a maslahah. But if that company is going to deforest or clear peatland or clear mangrove forest in order to develop the plantation, the act of financing itself is halal, but not tayyib. So that's where Islamic banks have now come at looking at how do we put screens beyond halal. So halal looks at the contract, the legality, but the tayyab part looks at, are we creating negative impact? So what we call, are we increasing the footprints? Right? Are we walking gently on this earth, or are we destroying the earth? So if the answer is yes, they're going to create more harm, then the bank should say, look, I'm not going to continue with this. So that's why it's really important to come up with a plan where not only we reduce harm by not going into sectors, financing sectors which are polluting, like coal-fired power plant, for example, or coal industry as a whole, because these are high polluting industries, but also other industries. At the same time, because that's why the Quran uses Amr Ma'ruf wa Nahy al-Munkar as a activity that you do simultaneously. You just cannot say, I'm going to reduce harm, because the country cannot develop. So you need to then find opportunities for development which is positive to the environment, renewable energy, circular economy, and so on. So it all correlates. The problem I see today, I want to finish in a minute or two, is that in pursuing that objective, we ended up complicating the whole process. So in my humble opinion, you know, the Quran talks about kiraman katiban, right? A person who records all the good deeds and the bad deeds. We are spending a lot of time recording it, right? So today we spend, I think, 80% of the time quantifying what we are doing, all the negative impact that we have created, right? That's what we have the TCFD trying to quantify climate risks. Then you have scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. Prof mentioned, right? I think you mentioned about what is my direct impact when I switch on the aircon? Is it direct or indirect? So we put a lot of effort in trying to quantify our footprints. So 90% we try to put in all this measurement, assessment, and then we report. I mean, there are 8 different standards governing reporting itself. Can you imagine 8 standards? Yeah, right? So TCFD itself was a big exercise. Now they're talking about TNFD, right? From climate risk to nature. So these are additional burdens. So we're spending a lot of time recording all our deeds. How many good deeds I've done in the last 50 years, right? Versus how many bad deeds. Then suddenly I get worried. My bad deeds is 80%, good deeds only 20%. And then I start planning. Next 10 years, I go to start doing more good deeds. And then I put how many good deeds I have to do. What is the reward I get for each deed? 10 years gone, just recording the deeds. Belum buat deed lagi. By the time my time is off, gone. And then I go to God and say, look, no, sorry, mate, I just spent too much time. Sorry? By that time, the standard has changed, right? So this is what I'm appealing, that our journey started with a good footing, that we want to be a Mohsin, we want to address the negative impact, promote positive impact. But along the way, I think we got so bogged down with trying to capture, measure, assess, creating targets. And suddenly we realize 80% of it is just effort. Impact, semakin kurang. That's my humble opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rafi, for giving us the discussion on Tayyib Muhsin al-Ihsan. فَإِذَا قَتَلْتُمْ فَأَحْسَنُوا الْقِتْلَةِ. So when you do it the best way. Not just do it, but do it the best way. That's what the Prophet said when it comes to slaughtering animal for that. I now move to the last segment of the finance. Capital market is something has been seen all the time as elite market. Okay, why? People like us, perhaps not of us, but many of us cannot even touch sukuk. Because for you to be designated as someone eligible for sukuk, for example, you have to have transferred at least 3 million net of your, not just what you have and what you have to pay. Net of your wealth must be 3 million for you to touch on sukuk. Eligible for that, at least. So many of us may not be able to touch that kind of instrument, perhaps. I mean, And the definition of sophisticated investors, you know what is the definition of sophisticated investors? Not based on your education, but how much you have. You might be a professor, Tan Sri Emeritus, whatsoever, Tan Sri. If you don't have 3 million net worth, you are not sophisticated. That is by definition. In Malaysia, in some countries, even 5 million USD. If you translate into Malaysian ringgit, it's about what? 20 something, right? I mean, 4.62 today, 6.1 today. So that is the definition of sophisticated within. So you might be a professor, you teach Islamic capital market, you teach capital market, you draw everything, you put all the theory, all the product you invent in the market, you are not sophisticated. Simply, you are not 3 million net worth. I mean, previously, I mean, talking from capital market point of view. I think, but more now we are moving toward more liberalizing the market to also being more inclusive in our treatment. Now we have P2P, we have all sort of dealing with what we call small people. Of course, a lot of things communication need to be made, a lot of things need to be done. People still look at this particular area as area that only you boleh lah. You siapa, I siapa. That situation. I think a lot of things that I think for Hanizah to working and has to work on that particular things. Now we are talking about another new thing in Islamic capital market or capital market in general, which is sustainable development. Another agenda and menu on your table for you to consume. I mean, like it or not, that the thing that we have to do. And from Sharia point of view, that's what we want to do actually, within our definition and our standing of that particular area. I mean, without further ado, I give the floor to Puan for her deliberation on this particular topic, please.
Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. It is very humbling to be here. I'm surrounded by either doctors or PhD students and no, I'm not in the I don't fulfill that sophisticated category obviously here. So that already in itself is a humbling experience. And I don't know whether it's good or bad to be the last panelist. You know, you can always pick up from everybody else, but it's also very, again, I use the word humbling because coming after Dr. Aznan, Prof. Tan Sri, Cik Najib, and Rafe is of course a different league. I always fear, I met him a couple of days ago and I said to him, why don't you just say everything and give the last boring piece to the regulator, and we're kind of, you know, we're good with that. But I think there were key words that I picked up here. You talked about definition, Tan Sri. You talked about complication. I think Dr. Aznan, for ICM, interestingly, you said you're surrounded by people with money here today, right? It's actually OPM, other people's money. We also deal with a lot of money, but it's all other people's money. And we're trying hard to see how you can link Islamic capital market, Islamic finance, and then on top of it, you're layering it with SDGs to be incorporated into what we play in SC Malaysia, a regulator role and a developmental role. And that's sometimes a struggle, sometimes an opportunity. Because when we started out, I mean, Islamic finance became a national agenda. And therefore, it was easy to build up the story of Islamic capital markets. And we are the leaders. Till today, we lead. We are, I mean, safely, we can be podium finish for a lot of categories, be it sukuk, be it funds, be it assets under management. I also wanted to add, we are actually for podium finish, we #1 for acronyms, Tan Sri. Yeah, acronyms. We succeed in making life more complicated. And yeah, whether good or bad. So as a regulator, we should be enabling and facilitating. When we started out, we were always in the traditional space. I mean, again, we started with negative screening. Dr. Aznan mentioned that. And it was easy to build it up for Islamic finance and Islamic capital market because the story was straightforward. Until we see financial services and products evolving. And that's where we have today, of course, something that's been very much Western driven, the SDGs, but it fits into what Islamic finance and Islamic capital market has always been. But the problem is always we take a second seat or a back seat to idealism that's coming from another side of the world. So I guess the question is how brave we are in making sure we're the leaders in Islamic finance, making sure that value proposition remains relevant, reminding everyone that we were there first before we allow it to be hijacked. And we're not only hijacked, and I'm using sensitive words, which actually if you were saying the airport, I already be hauled away. Hijacked, and also we're always held to ransom by targets. And I think I'm jumping ahead of time, and that's where under the sustainability agenda, where SC came up with the taxonomy last year, we came up with SRI taxonomy last year. SC has always been principle-based. And when we came up with the taxonomy, I think the question that came to SC was, why are you not maybe so robust or need more rigorousness in it versus some of the other taxonomies? And our answer was, it was based on readiness of the industry. We're not going to ask people to do something before you are ready. And that's where whether you want to be carbon neutral or zero is again the other question. And as facilitators and enablers, we saw Bursa coming up with the voluntary carbon market. And that gives you a way to actually trade carbon so that you can take the journey. So whilst we have that, I think we used our leadership position to send out a message to the world. We understand the need was there, but a lot of the initiatives and interventions we've been doing are actually helping people to transition the sustainable journey. So, for example, I think I have my SEC members here, Dr. Aznan, Prof, who knows that when we launched or when we rolled out our SRI linked sukuk last year, a lot of questions was asked as to what was it for? But it was actually with the intention to allow companies to commit and take a journey. I mean, we know there's greenwashing. We know there's, I thought it was interesting. I think Dr. Hassan put Sharia washing into the ask for us. I mean, SC organizers, I think most of you would know, SC organizers annually conversation roundtable that we do with Oxford Center of Islamic Studies. So last year and the last couple of years, we've actually been focusing on how do we manifest maqasid in Islamic capital market. And they came out the phrase maqasid washing. Worry also. So whilst we have this agenda, it was Oxford last year, you were there. So there you have it. You're going to add to that list, So there's many lists, but at the end of the day, what do we do? What's actionable? So for SC, I think we recognize as sustainability in Islamic capital market or Islamic finance has always had that commonalities. I've had several arguments, I think, with peers within even my own organization. Where do you put ICM? Is it in the Venn diagram or outside the bubble? And I've always been very, I think, firm on this. It should be in the Venn diagram because you have overlaps. You cannot allow ourselves to be a subset to sustainability agenda because we are the bigger picture story. So I think that's why for SC Malaysia, whilst we have always been champions of sustainability, and as a regulator, we have to be not faith-based. I don't want to use the word agnostic, but we have to be neutral. So we then champion what we are leaders in. So Islamic finance, Islamic capital market is where we are leaders in not only thought leadership, but also in innovation. And that's where from traditional side, we've actually gone to promoting ECF and P2P as bringing sustainability and inclusivity into the equation. And we are one of the most successful ones. I mean, 2 days back, I was talking to somebody who comes from the UK. And I think on the UK side, ECF and P2P is pushed up by the private sector. It's not that in Malaysia. The regulators actually introduce the intervention and we then push it out so that the underserved and unserved actually have an opportunity to come to the capital market so that we don't remain, I apologize, it's not a Sharia compliant word maybe, but so that ICM is not a sexy word and exclusively the belongings of somebody else. It should be for the man in the street. So we created Retail Sukuk Framework. And I know before anyone in the audience asks me this question, I'm going to answer it, preempt that question. SC has always had the framework for Sukuk Wakaf. You need players to come in and do it. The Sukuk Wakaf structure, along with incentives, has always been there. I've been asked by students, especially from universities, why is it SC is not promoting Sukuk Wakaf? And my question is that it is not in the role of SC to promote. We do not do business development. We enable and we facilitate. Hence, that's why I think we, of course, a lot more shout outs is good. We've got to do that. But I think, and in fact, going back to GHG, you mentioned greenhouse gas emissions, and this conversation goes on, right? How much, what's your report card? And I'm sorry, regulators are guilty of doing that. Like we impose reporting requirements, right? But for the GHG, for example, Malaysia is actually a rounding up error. It's less than 1%. And yet we are made to seem as if we are out there, we are the culprits. So we've got to defend ourselves. We've got to ensure, I think for SC, what I would like probably, I mean, I know there are other parts of this conversation later. There's a lot of demonstration effects and all that. But I think for SC, we move from traditional, we move to the underserved. I think our next chapter is actually, we're looking at a very key part of Islamic finance that's not been optimized, which is the social finance. Post-pandemic, you realize that social finance and many pillars of it, whether it's wakaf, zakat, or sadaqah, can be brought into the capital markets in whatever forms. So we are working on it, and we have worked. I think we are happy to actually say, other than PNB, which has a different ticket size and different muscle power, the smaller man on the street actually, I think the players actually have managed to get some AUM that's decent and reasonable. So we've managed to bring wakaf and marry it with capital market. Despite the structural problems in Malaysia, for the oversight of wakaf, we've been able to actually canvas close to 50 million in the last 2 years. You know, maybe by asset size USD, nothing to shout about for some people, but I think the important message is that we've managed to bring wakaf into capital markets. What's next is, I think we'd like to see how we can bring charity, philanthropy into capital market, but that has to be done with impact. And that's where impact measurement, I think, is the conversation we are trying to have. And we're trying to insert the need of how do you manifest maqasid in capital markets so that it's not seen as indifferent to capital markets. It's being that exclusive community. So I think Islamic capital markets within the Islamic finance, if you look at sustainable development goals or sustainability agenda, numbers to be achieved in funding gaps to meet or mitigate risk is tremendous. But the biggest source, actually a very high potential in it, and I hope maybe the bankers can support me on this, is actually wakaf. Close to 1 trillion assets are available, but it's how do you convert it? Maybe not all of it can be convertible, but potential is there. So hopefully these conversations can bring ideas and the fact that capital markets is not only for the rich, but it's actually for everyone. I think I stop there.
I think you have emphasized the big important point, how we should use Islamic capital market, in more particular, as a mechanism or a market for us to look more into sustainable development from Sharia point of view, from Islamic point, from practical point of view. We finished the first round. I think enough points given. A lot of things discussed, alhamdulillah, and starting with the provocation from Tan Sri, continuous till the end. I hope that now you see why you are lucky to be in UIA still, and also a lot of things need to learn. In our classroom, we don't have time to go that deep. Why? Simply because if we don't finish the syllabus, you make complaint to the university. So we have to finish the syllabus and sometimes have no time to go around this particular general point of view and ideas for that matter. To be frank with you, Puan, I'm teaching Islamic capital market. I try my best to make the topic easy. I'm not sure whether my students see my presentation was easy or not. I mean, try to make it easy for understanding of capital market, some of the products, especially when it comes to derivatives, structured products, ETF, and all those things. They say, my God, there are 20 arrows here and there to understand how the product is created, for example, for that matter. Thank you very much. Now we finish the first round. I would like to help the participants to participate and give ideas and questions if you have. let me start with first question while you are thinking of your question. I start with the first one to Tan Sri. Tan Sri mentioned about giving meanings to definition based on our own understanding, substance and everything. I think that's a good thing that we need. That's where the academia is important. Looking from a practitioner's point of view and expert outside the academia point of view, how you feel that this particular synergies between the academia and the practitioners, the expertise outside the academia is important for us to put forward our own understanding, not only from philosophical point of view, but also to be embraced by the practitioners and to implement. So our implementation of whatever you call it, SDG, sustainable development, are within our own understanding and to serve us rather than to serve others. Thank you.
It's a very important question. I think basically we Muslims somehow or other have got this inferiority complex. If there's no word Islam in it, then it's not Islamic. Yeah. So when I start SDG, they say, can we put Islamic sustainable development? I said, no, it's already Islamic. Okay, so you want to have an Islamic car, where Islamic car go? I'm not too sure. So I think that's the first thing that we need to get. I mean, if you believe that Islam is universal, then let it be. Yeah. So in other words, let me come to the very crux of the issue just now. When you talk about SDG, I agree with Najib. No big deal. Why 17? Why not 18? Why not 19? Why not 20? Why not 100? You know. So our conclusion is basically all the 17s can be culminated or put into these 5 maqasid. No poverty is, you know. So we have to remember only 5, not the 17. Because at the end of the day, it's just good. And when I talk to this to my friends in Europe, we don't use the word maqasid syariah, of course. We use the words the 5 basic of human existence. You know, and say all of this poverty can be about life, you know, education can be about intellect, and all these things can be put in this 5. And they say, hey, this is mind blowing. Why do I need to remember 17 when I can remember 5? And it pertains to me. It's almost personalized. It's not about the thing outside. And this is where I want to go back to what Rafe is saying. You know, when we talk about this climate change, we are talking about everything outside. We want to change the environment. We want to change the condition. But we never talk about changing ourselves. And therefore, I want to give you a good example in IIUM when I go to the Mahala and I see the fan rotating and I see the lights are not on. So I asked a student, don't you switch this off? No, Tan Sri, we switch it on the first day of the semester, and we switch it off on the last day of the semester. You can have all the rules that you want. If you don't personalize it and make that change, then nothing will happen. So I begin to understand that this sustainable development goal is human-centric in nature, not the environment. I mean, those are the sexy things they talk about. But until and unless you became sustainable yourself as an individual, that means the way you dress, the way you eat, the way you... I mean, the Islamic way of life itself, balance, is already sustainable. There's nothing to shout about. But here we are when we look at other people and we try to dress like them. In Europe, it's okay to dress like that, but in the hot sun, you don't dress like that. But yet you insist. We must dress this, that. I mean, I protested. The only I protest, I don't wear my socks because they don't see it. You know, there's no rationale why men needs to wear socks in the hot sun. I don't think the ladies wear socks. They're smarter than us. So there are certain decisions that we need to make for ourselves, so that sustainable development becomes real for ourselves. And that's where it counts. If it's about rules and regulation, I don't think it will work because everybody has difficulty and the rules gets complicated and so on and so forth and so on and so forth. So that's this one. A second thing I want to articulate what you were saying just now. How do you actually understand this? I go back to Bhutan. Yeah? When you arrive in Bhutan, please go to Bhutan and just experience what life is all about. Bhutan is the first carbon neutral country. Not United States of America, not Europe, not, you know. So how do Bhutan do it? And you go out of Bhutan, the first thing you see out of the airport is this word in big bold letters: no hurry, no worry.
No hurry, no worry.
Yeah. You know, they take life as it is. You know, there's nothing to, only 50 kilometers maximum you can drive, one traffic light in the city, that's it. So the way of managing development, there is this is one story that I want. If you want to go to Bhutan, apparently if you want to go to the airport, there's a hill, and the pilot must somehow or other make a very sharp turn
To land.
yes, to land. And they requested to the king, let's remove the hill. The king said, no, let the hill stay, because they have the right to, you need to sharpen your skill. And now, one of the best pilots are the people who flew. Yes. Now the Bhutan pilots are now well in demand because they've got that skill. We don't have. You know, so these are things that I think that is important for us. For those of you who are practitioners, my contention is this, that we need to actually make sure what is practiced is something that is feasible for us as human person to do it. Otherwise, it doesn't make much. I can go deeper into this, but that is what, and I think the collaboration between academic and everything else must go together, because we understand sustainable. The approach now is called the holistic approach, a whole government approach, a whole institution approach, a whole society approach. We cannot just work alone and the rest will not change with us. I think that's the approach that where we need to work together. Do my understanding and your understanding work so that the whole approach can stay? Otherwise, it becomes siloed again.
Members, panelists want to chip in for that idea. If not, can I go for the second question? Let me start with the banks. Okay, now there's a lot of pressure for banking sector to do away with some of our what I call a core Islamic financing. For example, many of Islamic banks, they are so much into, for example, car financing, vehicle financing. And with the EV and everything, so the demand for the Islamic bank, or for the bank in general, of course, since Islamic bank is one of the main holding of Islamic vehicle portfolio, for us to do away with some of the financing that considered to be harmful to the environment and everything, climate change and everything. So how Islamic bank moving forward deal with all those particular things while maintaining the prosperity, the one that they mentioned about profitability of the Islamic bank, and at the same time also looking into the planet, in which any financing that potentially harmful to the society, to the environment, should not, if 100% go, and must be reduced.
That's a really very pertinent question, because when you look at sustainable development, and as what Sharifa also mentioned, our GHG emission contribution is not even 1%. Remember, I talked about the 58 billion tons. Malaysia's contribution in 2016, we don't have the latest data, I don't know why, is about 345 million tons. So at that time, it was just 0.5%, our impact. And from the 345 million tons that we produce from various activities, about 259 or 260 million tons we sequester, because 55% of our land mass is rainforest. Rainforest is one of the best carbon sequesters, green. So net 75 million ton CO2e equivalent. So why are we being pressured so much to reduce? Because we are a developing country. This is what we need to articulate, as Prof mentioned. When people talk about sustainable development goals, we must bring our view. This CO2e, 58 billion ton, they've been harping on. It didn't come last year. It didn't come last year. It's been building for 100 years. See, carbon dioxide can remain in the atmosphere for 100 years. So if that is the science behind it, 58 billion tons, siapa yang produce over the last 100 years? If you are from the developed world, you must have produced 95% or 90% of the existing carbon inventory. Therefore, you should have a higher percentage to drop, to reduce. Why are you asking me to reduce? Because we have signed 45% reduction on our own by 2030. I don't know why we committed 45%, but we have committed. Now we are struggling because, if you tell us we cannot finance cars, how are people going to go to work? Of course, we are developing our infrastructure, public transportation, but it will take time. So I think we need to look at the totality. And if you look at where the inventory is coming from, 350 million tons of carbon, of CO2e, which means it includes carbon, methane, nitric oxide, and so on. Bulk of it is the energy sector. It's not from your cars. Bulk is energy sector, which means partly is also from your car because you're using petrol, right? You should move to EV. I think banks should generally give, like CIMB gives preferred rate for EV. Like electric vehicle, hybrid, you get a lower cost of financing to promote. But we are still not sure what is the carbon footprint for these electric vehicles, again, because you're just kicking the can down the road. 10 years from now, you have a bigger problem.
Of the battery itself, is it sustainable or not?
So what they say is, they say if you pakai solar panel, the cost, the impact to environment at the production stage requires you to use it for 2.5 years to break even, right? On the usage line. If you use it for 5 years, then you reduce the carbon that has been created to create the solar panel, and then the next 2.5 years you become negative. So all I'm trying to say is, as a developing country, we cannot be used as the same benchmark. I think we need to reflect. Banks should avoid high carbon intensive sectors. Coal, for example, mining, and certain plantations, because plantation that exploits peat, mangrove forest, is really harmful to the environment. Other than that, I think, vehicle financing, see, much home financing, majority, I think 99% of our buildings are not green certified. Right? Are you saying we cannot finance? And let's say we do the climate risk analysis, which we are doing, physical risk, transition risk, may end up showing all the houses in the East Coast, all the buildings in the East Coast are high risk, climate risk, physical risk. Are we going to stop mortgages financing in all those countries, all the states? Or is it going to be KL 4%, Kuala Terengganu 6% financing rate? So I don't know what is the outcome of all this exercise. But my humble opinion is, since we already have an inventory of carbon GH2 emissions at the country level, which shows is coming from energy, transportation, you map it to banks that finance those sectors. So we have 30 banks, for example, and then we see what is the markets of each bank in those sectors. And then you tell bank ni, you punya share of this carbon emission indirect is say 12.3%. What's your plan to reduce? Right? As opposed to asking each bank, you go and measure your carbon footprint using your own sort of broad methodology. Then you think, oh, each bank has got different classification, different methodology, which creates more confusion than clarity.
EV, sorry.
I think we should.
And everything.
I think it will cost us more, right? But again, what would be our impact to the entire?
My question now is that the regulators are imposing on us on certain years for you to go to certain level of EV, for example, financing EV.
Yeah.
I mean, financing EV come together, Tan Sri, with the infrastructure.
Betul.
I'm driving back to Penang, for example, from my hometown. Okay, it's 300 something kilometers, I think. Okay. Our charger, whether the charger to charge the battery is sustainable or not.
Yeah.
If I have to stay for one person at the petrol station for half an hour,
We put a sign, no hurry, no worry.
no,
So, yeah, we have to be, right? So the point I'm making is, I think we should not be measured
my worry
based
is that the what we call the demand and expectation is here, but the infrastructure moving is not coming up to the expectation that we have.
And I think importantly, we are not the main polluters. That's what I'm saying. And if we can spend time, I think last point I want to make, we are not spending enough time on sequestration. I think we will have better chance kalau kita focus on sequestration, meaning kita revive our mangrove forest. We revive our peat land. We revive our rainforest, right? Reforest and afforest. I think we have better chance. Dalam 5 tahun, you see they'll be flourishing and you see your carbon emission coming down. I think we have a better chance.
You are exactly what it is. That's why I say contextualization. We are one of the 12 mega diverse countries in the world, but we are not using it. You know? So when you talk about this, all these problems, it says 100 years ago, 300 years ago, it started with the first industrial revolution. You know? And now we are talking about the fourth industrial. We jump into the fourth industrial revolution, but there's nothing to do with the environment, nothing to do with our diversity. We're going to invest into technology we do not have. And my question is 4IR sustainable? Why did Japan do not talk about 4IR? They talk about society 5.0. You know, so we do not have that alternative when we jump into a bandwagon just because. And I remember the year 2015 is when they launched the SDG in New York. 2016, when the WEF talked about for the fourth industrial revolution, nobody talks about SDG in the government. Everybody suddenly jump into the 4IR. This combination tak ada between the two. So kita punya thinking ni is very much colonized, like, for one or a better word.
Yeah.
You know what the white people do on the other side? Do you think that's a solution?
We have been framed to follow.
If yeah.
Please.
So like if I may add to both, sorry, you one key word I think SC sees in moving this forward is having like-minded stakeholders. We may have this conversation, we whether EV is ready, increase mangrove, but the entire value chain, we are very fixated on the value chain to meet the zero carbon needs. But the value chain that should understand what needs to be done is not there. If the makciks don't understand what mampan is, and fair, they wouldn't understand. And for them, it's survival. So if you go to even your ECF P2P, I mean, we've been starting, or we actually instituted a COE to educate SMEs on sustainability because they're part of the value chain and they're 80% of what this whole economy is about. So like-mindedness here is we can come up with all the frameworks, all the acronyms, whatever, but if everybody is not pitching in, and that takes awareness. We've gone through, I think, many roadshows trying to get an understanding of what people need. The level of penetration is not there yet. So to get to where we want to, we want to say walk the talk, whatever it is, or ambitious targets, like-mindedness has to be across the stakeholders. When you go back to the board seats or the boardrooms, don't ask about ROI if that's not going to happen. Don't ask about P&L if they're not going to be contributing and doing just a lip service of doing a CSR, planting one mangrove tree and that's it. I tick the box. It has to be scalable. And that's where, if you look at it, can I just quote one number? If you look at what happened at COP last year, the GFANZ, the Global Financial Alliance for Net Zero, they committed to mobilizing USD 130 trillion. The question that keeps coming back now, where is that money? Where is it going? I mean, people quote these numbers. ESG assets under management, quoted to reach 2025, US 53 trillion. That's because that's almost 3 times where it was in 2016. So where is that money coming from? People like Vanguard are already questioning, why should I be doing it? I mean, I will question, and I'm trying to be provocative here, ask Dr. Basri next to me, where the PNB preaches out for Kukuh and all the glicks, but what are they doing about it? What are your investee companies doing about it? Well, because we can preach. But that's where it has to be like-minded.
Yeah.
Everyone has to come on board and do their role.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm going to pull back some of the points even from what Tan Sri mentioned. to what Rafi mentioned, to your question and to what Sharifah mentioned. I think we all are here having an aligned understanding. Sometimes we're a bit more cautious of what we say and against what is expected, right? We know for a fact that the expectation that is put forward to us is not aligned to what we require as a nation right now. And then let's be blunt about it. Right, we talk about reducing carbon emission and environment, being very selective in what we finance. And I like what Rafi mentioned about focusing on building on being selective on certain things, mangrove and rebuilding that. But again, at the same time, we can't stop development. If you stop development, then Sabah Sarawak will forever be forest. And when we talk about social finance, in a sense, in what SC wants to do, and against these two, it doesn't correlate. In order to develop social finance, in order to bring up the people down the street, you need to invest. We talk about EV, how many people can afford EV?
That's why Allah said in Quran,
yeah. And when what yeah, and that's actually the point I wanted to make. And holistically, again, right now we have academicians, regulators, we don't have government representatives, because again, all this is not aligned. We can talk about not financing certain sectors when projects are being offered on certain sectors, then it doesn't make sense, right? Then you push finance player to meet certain KPIs when the whole thing doesn't jive to it. But more importantly, I come back to finding balance against what we need as a country towards what we want to achieve, towards making people happy. If we don't provide enough infrastructure, we don't provide enough schools or housing estates for certain areas like the one in East Malaysia, then how people there could be happy? Everybody keeps coming into KL to work. And cars gets more in KL, and we have all the traffic jams that we can't survive every day, right? And unhappy people. While financing, while other instruments should be spread out, and there will be times that we need to decide on certain sectors that we need to spend first for the future, but knowingly planning it appropriately, including all stakeholders, that these are steps we take in order for 10 years down the road to meet certain targets that you want to achieve as a nation. There's no point talking about standards that are imposed to us by people who don't care about us. I'm being very open and very blunt, provocative, because this is what I feel, because there's no point of debating when we will achieve this carbon emission, when we achieve this carbon emission at the stake of somebody not receiving education. Is that fair? Right, I think that's a question practitioners, academicians, and even the government should ask themselves, or politicians for that matter. Right? And then only we talk about what sustainable development means for a country and a nation. That's my point of view.
The floor for any reflections, questions from everyone, please. What time we should finish?
Assalamualaikum.
Wait. What time we should finish, organizer? 12? 12:30? 12, okay, I dengar 12:30. Gitu.
Assalamualaikum, Prof. Okay, I'm Dr. Razina from IIiBF. I'm also a fellow of Strata Center. I have one question. In Pakistan, they have a specific guidelines when it comes to sectors in regards to sustainability, which means that they will list down every single possible products, financing products for sectors. Okay, so basically I want to ask, do we have enough innovative products in our sectors to have this kind of, very specific, very guided, activities or projects inside the bank? This is my questions. And then, of course, are we allowed to be more creative? Thank you.
Okay. Do we have enough innovative product that promote the sustainable development? I think that's, I can put that in that manner. Okay. Anyone to respond? Or the three sectors?
So very quickly,
The moderator will
majority of the products are already tuned for sustainable development. As long as we ring fence or direct it to a certain use of proceeds. So if you give, say, Ijara financing to a company that is going into green energy or sustainable farming, the Ijara is still the same, right? But the end of the use of proceeds make it a sustainable Ijara. But now we're also using sustainably linked financing. Maksudnya, we know that company is transitioning. Currently, it might be brown. They will go to green. So we give them a 5-year plan. Okay. In 5 years' time, you're going to reduce your emissions to go to green. And as and when you progress, kita bagi better rate for you. So sustainable linked financing is growing, but it's still around 1% of the total financing that's outstanding now. So a long way to go. Thank you.
Maybe just to add to the sustainability link part, I think Rafi already said it, that the basic principles are there. I think when you ask for innovation, I was trying to understand better what are you expecting when you say innovation, because there are many segments that at the end of the day, it's a commercial call by the banks to come with creativity. Linking it to sustainability, they are, for example, we have taxonomies. That's also a guidance to see how they are actually allocating proceeds, utilizing it. So I think there are guidances, and that's why I wanted to understand when you say Pakistan has that guidance, I would try and understand what is the guidance given. Is it for the purpose of sustainability or for the purpose of the product oversight? That would help, because I mean, and I'm not trying to not answer the question, because if you're talking about creativity, innovation, and product line breadth and depth, I would say, Rafi, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Malaysia has it as one of the most matured and deepest. So maybe that's my immediate answer.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to explain. For example, now under ICM, we have the structure for Wakaf Suku. Okay, and then of course, based on my own research, I found out that basically we can do a kind of humanitarian suku, which is we can use for any kind of humanitarian invention, including, such as to tackle the refugees crisis. So basically, this still depends on the projects itself, or, are we going to use the same wakaf structures? Okay, and then of course, for Pakistan, they have very much focus on, because of course, agriculture is their main sector for the country. So they give specific products for the farmers, especially, of course, they have rich farmers, they have low income farmers. So they provide, quite vast kind of products to finance these farmers, depending on, their needs. So this is why I'm asking whether are we, yes, we have the structure, but then are we going to still need to depend on the project itself, or we have to be innovative in our products? Thank you.
Product or approach? Because product we are very innovative anyway. Approach, perhaps you mean?
Maybe.
Yeah. I think in terms of products, I think breadth and depth of the market, I think if not the best, we are one of the best lah. I mean, in terms of the product innovation, all those crazy product we see in Malaysia. For example, I mean, just the word I use. For example, people having loan stock. There is nowhere loan stock in the world except Islamic loan stock in Malaysia. We coin it convertible unsecured Islamic. Sometimes people say it's like squid already. I mean, all the coin that we put there. I mean, in terms of innovation, but in terms of how that particular innovation put into approach that can sustain that is the issue that we have, I think. Correct. That are the thing that I think we have to have more for that matter. As regulators, partly of SAC, if I may, Puan, I think we are, I mean, Wakaf, Sukuk Link and everything, the intention is to widen the market, allow for people to come and propose. And as Puan correctly mentioned, that as a regulator, we don't produce the product. We facilitate for the market to produce and to innovate. And I think what we have so far in terms of regulation and regulatory environment, I think we are among the best. The next to coming up now is Emeritus. I can tell you, if we are stagnant, we don't go further, give them 5 years, they are going to go above us. I'm in the economic development now. I can see it. No, don't do that, please. That's too much already. No point of discussion today. Okay, next question, please.
Assalamualaikum. Prof. Azizi from IIiBF. Yeah, I'm here. My question is to Rafi, because we talk about product innovations. And then you talk about the sustainability link financing and everything. Maybe you can explain from the perspective of banking, right? Because we always see the innovations come from the capital market. We have seen the innovative social impact bond, right? And then this has been translated into banking, sustainability link financing and so on. But why is it like there's a lag a bit behind it when it comes to banking? And we know there's a constraint in terms of the NCC costs. When we have take deposits from the depositors, we have to protect their interest, but we cannot deny the fact that we still need a higher level of innovations in banking, right? I'm not sure whether you agree or not with me on that. And the second, my second question is that, I mean, you made a joke about until it's already late, then we have to measure, and then by the time they change the standard and everything. But at least there's some framework that we have to do. But what can you give as a banker as commitment for us to measure at least first? Because we cannot deny the importance of measurements, and then we can take actions. Of course, it has to move in tandem at the end, right? But that's my because CIMB, of course, they become the signatory for PRB and everything. So thank you.
So the first point on creating more diverse products, as mentioned by Dr. Aznan, we already have a full suite of products. What we require is to use the products in the sustainable sectors. And that's where the understanding is required. So if you want banks to go into sustainable farming for food security, or into green energy, these are often what we call greenfield projects, because they are using new technology, they don't have proven track record. So banks sometimes struggle to find a proper understanding to get the credit scoring, whether we should give the facility or not. This is where I think the industry can work together with various experts like SEDA, for example, and other government agencies to guide us that, look, don't worry, this is a proven technology. This sustainable farming need, Thailand or other countries have used it for 10 years, is very robust. The risk can be mitigated XYZ, because as you know, we are here to protect your deposits, our primary consideration. But we want to make sure the financing is going to sustainable sectors that's benefiting the country, the environment, and so on. On the second point, I'm all for measurement, because often we see nothing measured, nothing. So we want to do things, but in moderation in measurement. Today we are spending, in my humble belief, we are spending too much time on measuring and setting targets. And by the time we complete that, we are already exhausted. We haven't been able to do the real work. That's right. Right? So what I'm saying is, since we already have the data at the country level, these are the 5 sectors that are the biggest pollutants. Okay. Of course, there could be 20 sectors which are polluting. Don't worry about all the other sectors. We have to look at materiality, right? Life is all about choosing material versus non-material. If the material sectors that contribute 90–80% of the emissions energy, transport, industrials, some agriculture, and Lulu CF, the land change. Focus on that. And from this inventory, you can then track, because all these sectors will be financed through equity and debt financing, Islamic, conventional, whatever. Then you break down. Kalau equity ni, siapa yang underwrite? Maybe PNB ambil sikit, maybe EPF. Then you go back. Okay, PNB, EPF, you are indirectly holding these assets through your equity holding. And banks, okay, you are financing 13% of the energy sector. You are responsible indirectly for 13% of the emission. So that means I already have a measurement. Tak perlu I measure on my own. I take that ballpark figure, could be plus minus 10, 20% wrong, tak apa. You start a plan. In next 5 years, I'm going to reduce my 13% market share, allocated market share, to 8%, 7%. And this is my plan. So at least I go straight to implementation, as opposed to spending the next 5 years figuring out what is the emissions from my portfolio. You know what I'm trying to say?
Always said about the teacher lah. They are sometimes previously they said people are too much into recording, into everything. Dah letih dah malam tu dengan segala benda nak kena buat, pergi mengajar mengantuk lah. And they feel tired. So the purpose of all recording and everything is for them to teach properly and the way benefiting the student. But because they are too tired of doing all those things, come to the student, no more energy to do what they are preparing to do for. I mean, that's what I try to say, right?
Can I jump into that? I think I am very bothered about this thing called measurement KPIs. Not because it's not part of the academic world that I am in. For example, if you talk about measurement, there are certain things that we cannot measure. Do we say namanya dalam kita punya blueprint? There are 6 student aspiration: leadership, learning, language, and there's another one, knowledge. But the other 2, one is about ethics and spiritualism. The other one is national identity. I'm in the board of monitoring this aspiration. The last 2 aspirations were not properly done because they don't know what to measure. And yet ethics, spirituality, national identity is the crux of this country. You may be brilliant, you may be all this, but you don't know what this is all about. Therefore, that particular item has always been pushed aside. You know, so when we declare besok 2025 and all this blueprint is going to be, that will be the numbers that is actually down. And if you look at the country today, this is what's happening. Ethics is down the drain, spirituality is down the drain, national identity, we still do not know who we are. Suddenly the word Madani comes in, as though we have not been Madani in the last 100 years. So these are issues that I think we in the academic world is really very concerned about. If you insist on just measuring, and then when I talk to my friends in Finland, they say we don't measure anything. Why? They say we work on the culture of trust. No homework, cikgu tak ada assessment, budak-budak tak ada assessment, and yet at the end of the day they are top of the list. So these are the things that we need to think balik.
Happiness economy, they are the first or second.
The word happiness lagi. So I think we need to rethink. We cannot just be following. And we think Islam has all the solution, but we are following everybody else. So where is the Islamic solution?
Good.
Aznan, can I just add to the first part of the question on the banking and sustainability link? I do appreciate that for the banks to undertake sustainability link, and I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong, like Rafe, but scale and the size of the business that they expected to fund will matter to compensate what risk you are taking. I think that's why capital markets have become more prominent in, say, agri-food or food security, because if you look at Malaysia, and it's probably more of a structural problem, your agri sector are occupied by smaller setups. We've not gone up the value chain. And for these people to go to the bank or, and the cost of going there versus going to, say, alternative space, like where we came in and established ECFs and P2P, was actually to address that. So then they gain scale. When we did an accelerator program, the last, actually 1-2 years, we've done 2 in both the banking space and the capital market space. Many solutions from agri, for example, came in, but they're very small in size, and on the value chain, they have not reached that scale yet. So what we need is to address that. So private markets for capital markets are now coming in big. Your angel investors, your VCPE, grow with them so that then we can graduate them to the bigger companies, not only benefiting the public markets, but benefiting the likes of the banks in the funding, because otherwise we're not going to solve the current, I think, very serious structural problem in the country where a lot of the SMEs aren't able to go to that next level. So we're kind of stuck in that pace here. So that's where sustainability link comes in to tie it to SDGs.
In terms of, boleh tanya sekejap? It's come to my mind. Who can say no, right? In terms of serving the underserved and unserved segment of the society when it comes to Takaful, how we have progressed?
So this is a question that has been around for many years and has always been a topic of many interests from regulators, or even I think even the government has taken a few initiatives over the past few years. If you've noticed, perlindungan tenang voucher, My Salam, all with the intention to first force the industry to go to the low income segment, which naturally is what people see as underserved, right? But more often than not, there's more than that. With the new financial inclusion framework that was introduced by Bank Negara, people who cannot access, people who doesn't know, doesn't understand, and sometimes these are not people who doesn't have money, right? So how much we have progressed, there's still a lot of place to work on. Some of these initiatives from perlindungan tenang voucher that was pushed by Bank Negara forced some of the players to start introducing low income products. But now perlindungan tenang voucher is no longer there. These players stop pushing these products as well. So again, it comes back to what my brother Rafi mentioned about Mohsin before, and what Tansi mentioned is also first asking ourselves, industry players, why we were doing this in the first place. If we're doing this because of the subsidy is given, then it's not going to be sustainable, and you won't be able to address the underserved in the longer term. Because the moment a subsidy is taken away, or any assistance taken away, then again you're leaving all these vulnerable people again left hanging. They have protection for the past 3 years. None of them passed away even during COVID and didn't get the benefit. Right? I think that again, coming to what you mentioned earlier about why we do this, even Takaful agents pushing and just taking it, just take it, and not understanding why you're doing it is again a more fundamental question. Why the underserved what you mentioned again, whether how far we have gone, because that's why I can't answer. Because if you ask me about line of products, because a lot of conversation or questions even earlier about innovation, I feel if it's oversold. The word innovation is sometimes oversold because it comes back again. We have numerous products on the shelf which are not reaching out there to the people that is intended to. Like the other piece of people, when we talk about inclusion of disabled segments and whatnot, we at every Takaful has tried, but again, I'm shy to say to even admit that we have not progressed well in getting people to come board into our products. People are still skeptical, and it's still a bit expensive. And again, holistically, I think there are words about systematically about how the industry is structured to support this kind of initiatives is also important. So there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. And right now, we've progressed in being probably not the most popular thing to say. We've progressed into underserved, but now we're also taking step backwards to serving the underserved when we started off on the wrong, not so right footing on actually addressing the issue from the start, if you know what I mean. Yeah, that's my point of view.
Okay, thank you very much. My question number one is that now I think we kind of will listen from the panelists that on sustainability, we are that we are good, we have all the frameworks and whatnot. And then when Sharifat talked about that now, well, the framework is there. Now we need someone to take it and then, do it. That the action, what are we doing? Then we are talking about also a product which are very innovative, but still again, the question is a lot of people are not taking it. Why then that happen? Why people or industry, when it's up people here, individual as well as the industry, right, are not taking it. Whereas it's there. We are good, we are leading and whatnot. But what are the problem then? That's number one. Number two, Tan Sri, Tan Sri talk about having different definition. Definition is important, and then it need to be contextualized. And then we're also talking that we are good at prompting new terminologies, kind of thing. And people are taking sustainability on different contexts and different definition. What's stopping us, particularly Muslim and particularly, to come to one definition that we agree, that is common? What's stopping us to do that? And then what's stopping us to shout out that this is our definition and tell the people that, tell the whole world that this is our definition together. And I believe this is where, people can see us having our own definition. And that also includes Islamic finance because it is part of Islam and whatnot. Now, Cik Najib, Takaful, we can see, that Prof. Aznan also mentioned about when Takaful is established, we know this very, very noble, very good, what Takaful supposed to be. But in Islamic finance, Takaful seems to be less talked about. Okay. And then why that happened? Because we always, what always in my mind is that Takaful is a very beautiful concept. We want to see that it is more going to the life, touching the life of the people, but we see Takaful less. Why that happened again? So those are the questions that I have. Thank you very much.
I'll probably take the first part, why there's no take up and etc. And I'm going to try and keep it in 2 minutes. Maybe try and look at the phrase whether it's profit for purpose or profit with purpose. Then maybe analyze what's behind that. And that's why I go back to that phrase I used earlier. You do need like-minded intentions, like-minded stakeholders, because if we're all going for the same journey, then possibly there is. Sukuk Wakaf is not taken up because the stakeholders, for whatever reason, don't see that there is anything in it for them, that end result. And it's easy to find excuses why we don't want to do it. But it's easier to say, no, all this is difficult, etc., etc. But owning the thing is what we need to do. I think on the second one, when you ask why we don't do shout outs enough, why don't we define we are? Again, it's probably a structural problem. Maybe we're Asians, we're very shy, we're very humble people. We don't go out and speak enough. I was told that the last couple of weeks, some of us fall off radar. Maybe something to look within us ourselves. We should be brave for what we own. We're not wrong. So why are we not taking it on and saying that? And I think for Islam, it didn't help that there was a lot of negative energy the last 5 to 10 years for various reasons. So if we don't defend it, who else is going to defend it? And I think the last bit I want to say, which is why I think as whilst we are champions of sustainability for Islamic capital market, I think what I'd like to say, and my SAC members are here, they will probably know what we are trying to do is you can be one and same with a common global agenda, but there's nothing to stop you to create that own identity and ensure that identity is strong in IF or ICM. And that's up to us to do it.
2 minutes, I hope I can do this very quickly. I think because we are sold out on some people's definition of success. Right? I know the academic world, success means ranking by somebody else, and that ranking doesn't have anything to do with us to start off with. The definitions are all not according to us, but yet we spend money on this. Therefore, I think we need to redefine what success is for us. Jannah is not part of our success. I'm quite sure. If we are really serious about this, then we are more vocal. You know, at the end of the day, you might as well be punished in this world here rather than the other world. But that's the choice that you need to make. So I think we need to begin with what we want and how do you want to drive this. And that's why I think in the last 2 years when we were here, we make sure that we became the institution of the year in 2020 and award by United Nations, no less. You know, so in other words, we say that we can define the rules. Now people are referring to us. How do you become this in a matter of 2 years? And we tell them this is what you are doing. So what we do, I think, is more important. I think my worry about sometimes is we say we have done this, where's the documentation? Tak ada. Yeah. So when we talk about the rivers of life, for example, the river, somebody came to me, we have done this for the last 20 years. So say, let me see what you have done. No documentation. No documentation as far as the world is concerned, nothing is done. I mean, you talk about, you know, everything is recorded, but we don't record. We kalau berborak, maybe we are top in the world. Yeah. Tapi recording, we know that. So these are the things, Rosni, and that's why I'm very happy that you do this. You know, it may be a humble start, but yet people now can see what exactly do we have achieved, how do we have accomplished it, you know, we can make it better. But those are the things we need to talk, to walk the talk. We need to document it, and you need to be courageous and be them. Say what you want to say. Allah kata, if you are not going to be this, then you will. I'll give you my simple example. Maybe this. When I was a vice chancellor, the minister called me and said, put somebody else there as a director of these places. I say, sorry, sir, it cannot be done. He said, why? I said, there's a process that need to be followed. You know the process because you're the minister. Dia ni minister minta. Dia say, I'm sorry, I cannot do it. After arguing 10 minit, dia empas telefon. And my friend dekat office, dia kata, what do you say to the minister? He banged the phone and he said, Vice Chancellor USM ni kelas kepala. And he said, I want to sack him. Alhamdulillah, you know. Tapi my rezeki is there when the cabinet reshuffle came in, he wasn't there. I lasted for another 8 years. So I do believe if you're really sincere about it, God will protect you. And that's the best protection that you can get. The rest are just empty promises. So we work on that. I think inshallah we will be there. Yeah. Assalamualaikum.
Question? Sorry, I have a question.
So responding to Prof. Rosni's question on Takaful, not in the limelight and whatnot, right? And we started off even when I was articulating my point, and Prof. Aznan mentioned that Takaful itself, by definition, is sustainable. But again, I send this question back to everyone in this room. When the moderator opened up questions, there were no questions about Takaful. It's an afterthought in everyone in this room. Because it doesn't involve big money. It doesn't involve talks about saving the world. It's about saving people and saving small things. And we don't like to talk about small things. While more importantly, it's closer to you than anything else and any other Islamic finance instrument in this room. Because we come back to the verse that we all Takaful practitioner hold: don't leave your family begging on this, leave them in rich rather than begging. But again, that is the sad reality about Takaful. And here, and I'm standing here with some of my other colleagues trying to change that. And it's going to be a journey to create that awareness. But that's my simple answer to why Takaful is because it's again a mindset change that we need to do. Because if you look at non-Muslims, you look at the penetration rate in Malaysia, insurance itself is 40%, 46%, close to 50%. No, they don't. They go for insurance, but the basis of protecting, creating financial safety net for them is natural. But not for the Muslims. At least for now. But there's also social aspects to it that we need to address, because a lot, again, between the 60% of Muslims in Malaysia, and we don't have to go into the details of the stats, a lot of them fall under the lower income segment as well. So again, to address this holistically, I think all the fraternities across Islamic finance will need to come together and address it as a system.
Yeah, so 1 minute. I think the only reason why the demand side is less than supply, there's more supply for sustainable finance than demand, is because when customers adopt sustainability practices, the cost of production goes up. Sustainable farming, sustainable manufacturing, cost goes up. So that means consumers are not prepared to pay higher price for that. So that needs to be addressed, and that will take time. Because by not doing something sustainably, you can price it cheaper because the cost you are passing on to the external market to sort out. That's it.
In Bhutan, the organic food are cheaper than the imported food. Here's the other way around. You know, it doesn't work that way. Yeah.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you to all the panelists and also the moderator for very inspiring and thought-provoking session. I just want to ask, actually there's two questions that I want to ask. The first one is with regards to how frequent or how intensive are the industry actually speaking to each other in trying to solve like national urgent national problems. Like for example, I think the Aznan is sitting in the Sharia board of IIiBF, right? And we actually see there's every urgent need to address the issue of creating a good social security net for the people in Malaysia, because we're going to be an aged society soon, and after that super aged society. And as we always read in the news, the savings in our mandatory saving EPF is not enough to even last 1 month for majority of the contributors. So can we have like, maybe I would like to challenge the industry to come together and provide at least 1 or 2 alternative solutions, because you see that you cannot actually rely on the government. They come up with some fragmented solution. Like recently we have, you can use EPF as like collateral. Before that, they allow for withdrawal and all those things. Security. Okay, sorry. And then before that, allow for withdrawal. It's not a sustainable solution. So can we find, because I can see Takaful, maybe financial industry, capital market even, you can become the matchmaker for something which is more sustainable, which can solve that problem. It's actually a pain point for Malaysian society, but we still have not found a solution to that. So that's one of the things. So I think to be able to, yeah, but I think we need to be able at least to have a pledge that they're going to talk to each other so that we can find a good solution for that problem. At least that's one of the problems that come to mind, because it's not just about environment, it's also about society, the people on the ground. Okay. And my second question is about, I think we saw a lot of things about innovation products, but in terms of the takers of the product, I've been involved with some of the Wakaf Fund initiative and whatnot. I think the ease of doing things. Sometimes they're thinking about raising Wakaf Suku, they heard about it, they're excited about it, and they're excited about all these things, social finance, Islamic social finance. But when they really are going on that road, it's not easy. And most of the time they just face a wall and then they just give up, So I've spoken to many of these parties. They wanted to do retirement home, they wanted to do this and that, but they don't really get to actually do that. And when I mentioned about Wakaf School, they say, yeah, it's an exciting option, but they don't know how to go about doing it. So
they become too excited and cannot do.
So maybe if we can have some kind of dedicated unit in your institutions, maybe even the SC or each of the banks or Takaful, they may have dedicated unit who can actually, we can refer to, you can actually provide advice and match make with the potential parties. I mean, sometimes they go and meet some of the investment bankers and they say, our investors are looking at these things and they are not within that, that doesn't match with their social agenda and the kind of returns that they're going to have. But I believe there are social impact investors who would be interested in that kind of projects. So, but because they don't have connections, maybe we can create some kind of unit who can actually play the role of advisor or consultant or maybe matchmaker to make it happen. Like at least if something there's a breakthrough and we manage to have Wakaf Sukuk to actually do some of this project, it will actually maybe a trailblazer for others to follow. Okay, so these are my two questions. Thank you.
Perhaps that will be our next CEO talk. Synergy between all those stakeholders for this kind of thing. Yeah. I give only one person to respond for that. Siapa nak respond? Does anyone want to respond? Your question 2 hours, Prof. 2 hours answer. Yeah.
Maybe let me just try a very short one. So I think a lot of people try to do this. Even I think recently you look at the establishment of the MIFSC Council of Tan Sri Azman, MIFSC Council and whatnot. We pull together, but sometimes we look at very broad agendas, while some specific matters have not been pulled together, right? We do have representative from, I know, MTA today, IIBM today, or IIBM I'm not sure, but we can try and pull together, but it usually hits a roadblock, because one of the things yang earlier mentioned, why we don't shout out, I think Prof Rusni tanya, kadang-kadang even between us, the spirit of what we want to achieve also, we are not aligned. That's why I think Prof Aznan mentioned, I think this whole discussion requires 2 hours of a panel to try and sort it out. But again, if we start from a specific agenda that's pushed forward from the highest level within the nation and force us to do, probably that's a good start to start the ball rolling and eventually find that rhythm and cadence as industry to address other issues that can come up. I hope that sort of answers the question.
For further answering that question, I think we need perhaps next time we bring someone from, we have to identify all the stakeholders, come together and then try to see the synergy between them. I think I realized that perhaps another panelist that we need is someone from government here as well, perhaps on that matter. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Prof. My question is, in order to achieve SDG, after I listened to the session, spirituality that Tan Sri Prof mentioned is the engine of to achieving the particular goal. Because today most of us just simply say they do not do good deeds or extra good works if there is no recognition or the acknowledgement. So who should be our audience? For example, many people, my audience, I will do this for Rida Allah. So in order to achieve this SDG, who should be our audience? Thank you.
That one. Basically, ISTEC is doing SDG 18, which is spirituality. Exactly what I said, the 17 is not the final thing. Other people are doing things where we think we need to add on because of our contact, then we add on. Inshallah, early next year, we will broadcast it. I think the whole idea of sustainable development is about humanitarian. About humanitarianism, about humanity, about human dignity, about human values. Bagi saya, it's human-centric lah. So at the end of the day, how do we equalize? That is the issue. I think this is a difficult issue, as I mentioned to you. The developed countries has taken so much of our portion that we need to ask back. But now it's beginning to happen. Museums around the world, they are now give back the thing that you have stolen from us. You know, Egypt has done that. Many countries in Africa say, please return. It's not yours. I think we need to articulate those things. I mean, if you talk about justice, this is an historical injustice that we need to. And Islam is good at this. You know, and this is why so the academia bagi saya is important because our bottom line is about justice, not power. That's why sometimes we cannot work with the government. Their bottom line is power. You know, so if you're really strong on justice, if you're not, we will fight it. So this is the kind of mindset that I think we need to have where we need to drive it. But it is, to me, rahmatan lil alamin, better than sustainable development. So if you articulate that language, sustainable development becomes second tier. That one is the first tier. And this is where I say the Islam punya content must be articulated very well, and it does not discriminate anybody. Not only about human life, the non-human life also, rahmatan lil alamin. And I would just want to mention to you that last week, our student, for those of you who are in alumni, we have introduced a course that every student must have got a project now for the first year. And last week, they exhibited more than 150 projects that they have done in the community, as solving the community problem and understanding what the community needs are. And the university is shifting into this community engagement as the first priority to solve this humanitarian problem. If we got that right, I think inshallah we will move on. So I don't know, you're going to conclude this. I want to say something.
No, I give you 2 minutes after this.
Okay, thank you.
In my apologies, I have to stop the questions here. I know there are several hands here and there. Can I ask every panelist to give 1.5 minutes? Okay, I have this count 30 seconds already. Can I start with the one at the last one? 1.5 minutes each.
Thank you, Aznan, and to everyone. Thank you for this very good conversation. I think I hope the takeaway for everyone is that we need collective involvement from everyone to push this agenda forward. We recognize there's multi-stakeholders. We all have different roles, different end games, different objectives, some financial, some not, some filled with maybe non-qualitative, some quantitative. So we do need to sit down. I think that's most important. We need to sit down and talk first and then figure out what's actionable. Because at the end of the day, I think we are all the stewards of this place. We all have a responsibility. So it's not just about knowing what's for ourselves, what's good for everyone. And inshallah, I think we will see sustainability and Islamic finance go together well and in hand with success. And Malaysia continues to be the lead position.
I think the key takeaways for me, one is to make it simple so that people are aligned on the definitions and what we really mean. Second is to make the whole process less complicated. Look at materiality, make sure we focus on the key emission sectors and then start to evolve around it. And the third one is to basically look at the sustainable development goal holistically. Like you mentioned, certain things, not everything that measured is meaningful. Not everything that's meaningful can be measured. Thank you.
So I think few key takeaways. For start, Islamic finance or Islamic in nature is already sustainable by heart. At least that's what I gather from the whole discussion across everyone. And sometimes, like Rafe mentioned, or a lot of us mentioned, we complicate things more than we should. And once we get that together and holistically look at it, and we should be able to continue to be leading in this forefront. I think that's about it.
Okay, I just want to reflect. We were in one of the world-class university maybe a month ago, having a discussion of this nature. Yeah, but let me tell you now, this is much more world-class than the one that I've been to. So I want to encourage. Yeah, there's a lot. That one, there's a lot of hypocritical talk and so that they're not very open about it. So I want to encourage. This will be a kind of a series that we will do. Sure. But we have to document it, what is a takeaway from here, so that we can translate this into action. And not enough just to talk about it. How do you follow this through? So at the end of the day, you want to make the change, and let's do it together. I see a lot of talents. I see a lot of dedication. I see a lot of committed people, but we need to put this into a whole. If we don't do that, then I think it will not happen. So I would like to thank you for this to happen, and I'm very grateful that you are here, and hopefully this will continue for a long time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much. With that, Tan Sri, I think the most important take home here is that what is sustainable development? It should be defined within our context and our understanding, not to be carried over by other people and we lost within the definition of others. And our sustainability development does not serve us, instead it serves others rather than serve us. I think that's the most important takeaway from this discussion. Thank you all the panelists. Dato' Azizi, you get the point from the Rector. It's a more challenging thing to do after this. I take it as a blessing of this particular idea of CEO talk and discussion. We go further, inshallah, with some more burning topics and ideas, inshallah. Thank you for all the panelists. Thank you for our respected Dean. Over back to our Mrs. Chairperson. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Jazakumullah khairan kathiran. Thank you so much to the moderator and all the panelists for their enlightening discourse. I find myself nodding to a lot of the points shared earlier and learning even more things. Alhamdulillah. Thank you for reminding us of the importance of aligning not just our financial practices and products, but also our individual life choices with the universal principle of Islam for the betterment of humanity. And I guess in summary, we can all agree that in our collective and individual journey in developing a sustainable life within a framework that works for us and our community, we must strive and pray hard to Allah to make this journey a journey and a path that will bring us closer to Allah and Jannah, as Prof. Aznan said earlier. Because as a human being, our knowledge and our purview into the future is very limited. Plastic bags, for example, were once considered a great innovation and a solution to the problems we had in the past, but now become a problem of today's generation, right? So now we have electrical cars and so many other solutions offered, but the impact remains not fully known. Sorry, really, while I was sitting here, I was thinking how scary, but also humbling at the same time to think that today's solutions could be tomorrow's problem. But don't lose faith. At the end of the day, we find comfort in knowing Allah, the most merciful, is also very fair and just, and we will only be judged based on our intention, circumstances, and efforts. Echoing Encik Rafe and also Tan Sri Dzulkifli, when our continuously changing standards and framework cannot fully measure the impact of our efforts, we believe that Allah never misses a single thing, and therefore every single thing is measured in the book of Allah. So whether you are an academician, a regulator, Islamic product developer, students of knowledge, let's pray to Allah to make all of us people of Jannah. Ameen, ameen, ya Rabbal Alameen. Now, as a show of gratitude to the panelists and moderator, I would like to invite Professor Datin Dr. Rusni Hasan on stage to present the token of appreciation to our respected panelists and moderator. Yes, kat depan. Okay. Now, I would like to first invite Professor Emeritus Tan Sri Dato Dzulkifli Abdul Razak. Fruit basket. Hi. Thank you. Now we invite Encik Wan Ahmad Najib, Wan Ahmad Lotfi. Okay. We will now invite Encik Rafe Haneef to come forward to receive the gifts. Thank you. Next, let's have Puan Shrifatul Hanizah Said Ali. And finally, our beloved Professor Dr. Aznan Hasan as our moderator today. Oh. Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Dr. Datin Rusni Hasan. Now, before we close, I would like to invite all participants to come down and maybe move a little bit to the middle so that we can take a group photo together. If maybe to that side, to just the participants, I think move to the middle a little bit. One more time. 1, 2, 3. Okay, freestyle. 1, 2. Okay, thank you. Once again, we extend our sincere gratitude to everyone present today, our panelists, lecturers, sponsors, committee members, and all of you who have made this event a success. Just an announcement, we would like to announce that there is a booth selling handmade bags outside, so feel free to browse and shop. Thank you for coming, and with that, we end the majlis with Tasbih Kifarah and Suratul Asr. Assalamu alaikum.